Now, these analytical database software, they specialize in big data management for business application and services. If we talk about some example of analytical databases, that what all kind of data can be analyzed. So the various categories of, or we can say examples of analytical databases can be, first of all, market data, historical price and volume data for the financial market for testing trading strategies. So the very first example of analytical database can be the market data. If there's a person who wants to analyze the historical price and volume data for financial markets, for testing trading strategies, he wants to create some testing trading strategies. So the data that he wants to analyze would be the market data. Second example of analytical database, it can be the transactional data, historical transaction that can include the purchasing pattern for improved marketing. See, if we get to know, if we have a particular potential customer who is a constant buyer of our products, if we keep on analyzing his history, that what sort of product he purchases more, what all transactions he makes, into which products he deals more, he's interested more. So all this historical transaction, they can be analyzed to understand the behavior of the persons. So this kind of the analysis of data which happens, this is called transactional data, that depending on the historical transaction which include the purchasing pattern, they can be analyzed using our databases. They work for improved marketing of our products. Then we have the sensor data, historical data from the sensors that monitor the situations like the weather forecasting and all. So this the data from the sensors can be analyzed using our analytical databases. Nowadays these things, they have become very important and common also, that forecasting of weather every day. We may want to see that what kind of weather is going to be for the next day or for the next month or for the next year in this particular season. So that kind of data can be analyzed using our analytical databases. So that kind of data which is getting generated from the sensors. So that historical data that is getting generated from the sensors that monitor the situations like the weather and all, this kind of data we categorize into the sensor data. Then we have the natural language data, study of social media posts for the research purposes. This is happening nowadays. We can just if there are certain media posts, there's a separate branch which is working nowadays, that is called natural language processing, in which the natural language of people which they generally write or they generally speak, the analysis of that gets done. So that is how we can understand our people, we can understand their behavior, understanding their natural language. So if there's a particular person, he has bought a product from a company, he has written certain review about that product, that he what he likes in this product. So that review he will write into the natural language. Now natural language processing, how what will happen, it will analyze this certain words, that I like this product, so like might be analyzed. So certain important words will be retrieved from his data, from his review that he has given, and analysis on that data will be done. So if there are if a person is liking something, that means this is something that we should have onto into our product. If a person he is writing some negative review about the product, so what is that that he is disliking, or what is that that does not suit him. So according to that, if a proper analysis is gets done, they will weaken the people, they can make improvement into the products. So that is why the natural language data, it can be studied nowadays using these analytical databases. Then process the data, study of processes to better understand the logistics and to find the bottlenecks, that where are the hurdles coming. into the progress of the business organization. So to study the processes, to better understand the logistics, and to find the bottleneck, we do the processing of our data using the analytical databases. Then we have the machine data, the software and hardware data, which is generated from products to improve the efficiency can be analyzed. The software and hardware generated data, the data, it can be hardware generated, it can be generated using certain hardware, it can be some software generated, so that can be used to improve the efficiency of the organization. So that is called machine data. So these are few examples of analytical data on the basis of which the analysis of data can be done, and using this analysis of data, any organization, any particular firm, they can improve with their products, they can understand their customer, they can progress, and they can make better strategies, they can make better decisions for the organization. Now coming to the organization of the data warehouse. First of all, in a data warehouse, the data, they are organized around major subject rather than the individual transaction. Like we have seen, if we talk about the data warehouse, it is a large store of information. But here, the data, it is organized around the major subjects. What all major subjects are there? We do not keep on tracking the individual transaction of each and every customer. We work in a more organized form. We work on the major subject. We club these transactions together, and then we do the analysis of these transactions. We categorize them into different categories. So the data, they are organized around major subjects rather than the individual transaction. Second, the data in a data warehouse, they are typically stored as a summarized data rather than the detailed one. Raw data, which is found in transaction oriented databases. Generally, when we talk about the transaction oriented databases, we store the raw data into it. But the data in the data warehouse, it is typically organized as a summarized data. We do not keep on storing all the transaction. What do we do? After storing the transaction, after retrieving the transaction from various data sources, we transform them into such a way so that we can get a summarized data out of it. So that is how the organization of data warehouse takes place. Thirdly, the data in the data warehouse, it covers a much longer time frame than the data in the traditional transaction oriented databases. So the data that we have in a data warehouse, they cover a much longer time frame. Earlier in the transaction oriented databases, we had a smaller time frame of the data. But when we are talking about the data in the data warehouse, they cover a much longer time frame than in the traditional oriented databases, because the queries, they usually concern longer term decision making rather than daily transaction details. Any organization who wants to who is implementing this data warehouse, he wants to make better strategies for the organization so that the organization can make grow more. He wants to make better decisions for improving the product, for improving the resources of the organization. So in that case, what does he want? He is not concerned about the individual or the daily transaction details. He is more concerned about the longer decision making. Next, the most data warehouses, they are organized for fast queries, whereas the earlier traditional databases, they are normalized and structured in such a way as to provide the efficient storage of information. Earlier, when we used to have traditional databases, we used to store information onto it just for the efficient retrieval of information. But nowadays, we are using these data warehouses for the analysis of our data to take better decisions for the organization, to make better strategies for the organization. So they are organized majorly for the fast queries rather than just simply storing the information. Then the data warehouses, they are usually optimized for answering complex queries which are known as OLAP, online analytical processing, from the managers and the analysts rather than the simple repeatedly asked queries. Now these data warehouses, they can answer us some complex queries. Suppose we want to analyze our data in a complex form. We want to analyze the data of various customer related to certain product from different regions into a particular area. So we, whenever we have to have some complex kind of query, so in that case we can use our data warehouse for the online analytical processing. Then the data warehouses, they allow easy access via the data mining software that searches for patterns, and it is able to identify the relationship not imagined by the human decision makers. As a human, we cannot analyze the whole set of data which is stored onto the data warehouse. So this data warehouse, it will allow us easy access via our data mining software. We have number of data mining software in which we have complex mathematical algorithm which are running behind it, and they search for patterns and they're able to identify the relationship, which generally, if a person, if a human, he generally sees some set of information, he may not be able to analyze. So data warehouse, it definitely allows us easy access of the information for better analysis, for better identifying the relationship and patterns into our data set. Then the data warehouses, they include not just one but multiple databases that have been proposed, that have been processed, so that the warehouse data, they are defined uniformly, and these databases, they are referred to as a clean data. So these data warehouses, they are not just one but multiple databases that have been processed together. Earlier we used to have some separate databases. For the customer we have separate database, for the products we have separate database in which we have number of tables in which all the information was related. But this data warehouse, this is a whole set of multiple database, and these data warehouses, these are using certain data mining softwares, and with the help of which we can better analyze our data. We can create reports related to our data. We can run complex queries using these data warehouses.